Hey, hello, morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this. And today we're doing something a little different. We're going to talk about sharing our story because the title of this this video is "How I Fell More in Love with My Husband After He Died." And that may not pertain to you if you've lost someone who's crossed over. You might not relate to that, but I'll be explaining what I mean by that. And because in my case, it truly is the case that I didn't know how much I actually loved my husband until he died. And that I really expressed in the book that we wrote together. I'm going to share a little bit about how we even came to write that book because it really wasn't my idea. It was one of the first things that Alan said to me when he began talking to me after he passed away. He died, I mean, his physical body died on August 2020. That was kind of the beginning of COVID really kicking off. And he would later tell me that he knew that I wasn't going to be able to handle taking care of him by himself because he had dementia and he was roaming the house and he was just out of it and I was not getting any sleep at all. And one night, in fact, I fell asleep and he took a bad fall and he fractured his hip. And because he was 82 at that time, of course, that's a serious injury when you're I'm going to say a word he doesn't like. When you're elderly, he didn't like being called elderly. But he fractured his hip, and although he did have a hip replacement, that led to his decline, and that's very common for someone when they're older to go into decline if they have a serious illness, like maybe pneumonia, or if they have an injury. And in Alan's case, it was the hip injury. So he died, and it wasn't unexpected. Of course, in many ways, it was a relief because I knew he wasn't going to recover. And for I would say a couple of years before he passed, I had already felt like I was losing him because he wasn't. Although he didn't have full blown dementia, he wasn't all there. But then he wasn't really all there during our marriage either, as I've shared in the book. He was dissociated, he wasn't fully present emotionally, which was not how he was when I met him. Quite the opposite. He was so full of life and funny and fun, fun to be around. And he was just full of light, and I was drawn to that light. And we hit it off like immediately. And when I hugged him goodnight, like the first kinda night that I got to kinda hang out with him, and just hugged him goodnight, just say goodnight as a friend. This knowing just flooded me like, "This person is the one," and it caught me by surprise because I wasn't expecting it at all. It even occurred to me, and plus the fact that Alan was traveling with a friend of his who was a very well-known medium in England. And she had been kind of mentoring him, taking him under her wing, so to speak. So they were traveling the world giving readings. They weren't mediumship readings. Yeah, they were psychic readings. I don't think they really, well, Alan didn't really like to do mediumship too much unless he was pressed to do it, but that's a whole other story. But they were traveling and they were supposed to go to Hong Kong, but that fell through at the last minute. And so they decided to visit Honolulu and they happened to know a mutual friend. And that mutual friend brought him into the store that I was working at. It was a new age store. So I had been working at a store called Sedona, which is still in Honolulu at this time. But back then it was 1990 that I met him, and I've been working in the store since it opened in 1988. And that's 1987 was when I opened up as a channel. So everything that happened in my life from Well, from the time I certainly began channeling, I know was setting me up to meet Alan and actually to do what I'm doing right now talking to you guys, that everything was leading me to this. But back then when I met him, I didn't know what I was here to do. I just knew I was a channel. I was giving readings for people. I still give readings to people. And I developed, a clientele rather quickly. People heard about me and they sought me out. Friends of friends, that kind of thing. It was word of mouth kind of thing, really. And immediately people began asking me to teach them. And I thought, wait, I don't know anything. I just opened up. But it was because I'm a conscious channel. And so what I teach and what I was sharing back then was all coming from spirit. It's our word for God, for source. Alan and I would call that, spirit. So when somebody asked the question, I would just know. And and that's how I learned. I learned in part by teaching because my students would ask me a question and spirit or source would give me the answer. But I was always doing it consciously. But when I met Alan, I I didn't really like readings. I always knew I was here to be a teacher, but I didn't want to teach psychic development. And Alan was more of a full blown classic medium. I mean, and I wasn't. I'm a channel. And when I met him, I just felt that we were going to work together, because it was really hard to meet men, at least straight men who were spiritual and who were available, And so when I met him and we both felt this connection, within 2 days he knew I was in love. He was in love with me. I don't know if I knew I was in love with him. I knew he was the one, but I wasn't really thinking that I was in love with him. He said he knew he was in love with me within 2 days, and he was floored. He was like, "What? She's 15 years younger than me. She lives halfway around the world. How's this gonna work?" So we had obstacles between us, but that wasn't the real problem. In the end, it was his struggle between wanting his freedom because he got remarried to me when he was about 56. See, my dates are all messed up, but he had already had uh, children, adult children at that point from his first marriage, which had happened because his wife had become pregnant, and so they got married. And although he cared about her, he said he wasn't really in love. It was just felt the right thing to do. And I think spiritually, of course, he was meant to have those children. So, when we're not, it makes sense. So I met Alan when I was older too. I was about 37 and he was in his early 50s. And there was a 15-year difference between us, which he didn't like. And I don't think I took it seriously at the time that he was so insecure about me because, and I don't know about you, but most of us don't walk around thinking like, yeah, I'm so special. My partner is going to be feel insecure about keeping me or me loving them. But I promise you, many of your partners were carrying insecurity. Okay, and so I didn't know that because it would never occur to me. I knew I felt about him. I knew that he loved me because he basically gave up his whole life in England to move to Hawaii and be with me. And he didn't want to get married, and he agreed to get married, and then he didn't want to have children again. And I well, I didn't really force him to have children, but I told him when I got pregnant, I said, I know I'm meant to have this baby, and if I don't do that, I wouldn't be able to go on. I always would follow what I knew was right for me, and I wasn't going to change that even for Ellen. And I think right there he knew that I was different. He says right now he's saying right now to me, I knew you were different from any woman I'd ever met, and yet I was judging you as if you were like all the women that I ever met. And he didn't have a very high opinion of women. He felt they were manipulative. He felt, they were. controlling, and all these negative, descriptions, and yet he said I wasn't like that at all, and he'd never met anyone like me, and even just the other night, he was telling me, "I felt so insecure with you." I said, "Why?" I always told him he was so intelligent because he is. And he said, "Because you not that I was highly educated because I never finished college. I went to college, but I didn't finish." But he knew that I was highly intelligent. He knew that I, in his words, like, tuned into source, and so I would know things and trust it, and he didn't, although he could have accessed the same information. He wasn't doing it, and I had always done that since I opened up as a channel, and I had this sort of near-death experience where it just kind of wiped all my limiting beliefs, and I knew what I knew without knowing how I knew it, and I trusted it, and I have been following that guidance, that knowing, for now 37 years, literally 37 years, and it never, ever steered me wrong, even when it looked like what I went into was problematic. There was always something that good that came out of it. So, but when I met him and we had this instant connection, and I knew he was the one for me, and I wrote him letters almost every day, had to send them to England because he lived in England, and something told me I just had to keep writing to him because it would be so easy for him to forget me. Although as I say that, he's going, "How was I ever gonna forget you?" But I knew he was distracted, and he had a girlfriend back in England. Well, actually, he had 2 girlfriends, and and he had business, so I knew, well, hey, he may just forget this and just say, "It doesn't make sense, I'm just gonna stay put," because plus he was older and he hates change, he hates change. He hated change when he was younger, and he surely hated change when he met me, so I knew that this man I was in love with was gonna resist, despite the love that he felt for me, so I wrote him volumes of letters that he kept. I know this is how much he loved me. He kept my letters. I don't know what happened to my letters he sent me. He told me he remembers he didn't send me that many because he was busy, but I was writing all the time. I was trying to keep the love going, right? And so I wrote voluminous letters. I mean, and poetic letters, and he would say later to me, "I think you wooed me with your words, and you were a witch, like, you bewitched me," and then he would say, "Thank God you did," because he later said, "I know you saved my life," because he and I both know that, if he had stayed in England, he probably would have died, earlier than his time, but as I share in my book, I was guided to save his life. I was guided to get health insurance uh, kind of out of the ethers, but just by going for a job that led me to another job that got us health insurance, although I didn't know that's what I needed at the time. But again, if you want to know the details, read our book. The book, he said to me when he came back, "We need to write this book. It's going to help many people connect to their loved ones. I am going to make sure that that book opens the doorway to the other side." And I, at first, was like, "How do you do that?" Like, I never heard of anything like that. And it was until I talked to a good friend of mine who's very spiritual and has a lot of knowledge, and I very much respect. And he said, "Oh yeah, that the other side can certainly, put their energy into things." And he said, "Why couldn't Alan put that energy into the book? Why couldn't he open a doorway to the spirit world?" And in fact, that same friend who doesn't have a loved one on the other side, he's just very, spiritually aware. And I gave him a copy of our book, and he read it and he said, "Oh my God, I can hear my guides like more loudly than usual." And I do believe Alan did open that doorway because he was having all kinds of phenomena happen to him. And again, he didn't have a loved one in spirit, his family's all here. So my friend said, "Yeah, he's done it." And he says, "Other people have written books like that too." I mean, I don't know the authors, but he said it's not that rare. And my friend also told me something really interesting because he knew Alan, he had met Alan before Alan passed. And he said, "I knew when I met Alan, Pam, that he's here to help with the ascension. He's here to help people awaken." And so when he died, he says, "I was shocked because I was convinced he was going to live longer and be part of this, but now I understand that the whole plan was probably for him to help from the other side." And so my friend does agree. He says, "Yeah, he's helping in the spirit world." And I didn't understand that spirits on the other side do need help to project their energy through the veil. It's not like they all can do that. And I've heard many mediums since then say the same thing. They say, they're not all equipped to do that. They can learn, because Alan says they can learn anything, but it may take time. So when he told me we're going to write a book, and I said, "Well, how am I going to do that?" Like, I had no clue. I'm not one of these people. I'm not putting this down, by the way, anybody who has a dream of writing a book. I want to burst anybody's dream, but I wasn't one of these people walking around going, "Oh yeah, I know I'm meant to write a book, and one day I'm going to write a book." I was like, it never occurred to me, even though so many people, including teachers in college, said, "You're a good writer. You should go into journalism." And I said, "Nah, I don't want to do that." I knew I needed to learn about myself, and I wasn't going to do that through journalism. And that wasn't the kind of writing I want to do anyway. So when Alan said, "You're going to write a book," I said, "What the heck are we writing about?" And he said, "You'll see. Just write down what I'm telling you, share our message." And we did in the Facebook group that we have. Now it's since kind of changed the group, but the initial group only had 150 people or so in it, and I was sharing what he was telling me. I was sharing his messages that were for me, and sometimes they were for the world, and I was channeling him. So he said, "Well, it's going to start there." And I thought, okay, I'm going to write this book by just sharing all your messages. And later, when I started writing the book, I realized, oh, it's not that. There's a little bit of that. In fact, there's only a few of his messages in the book. But I realized I'm telling our story. So I was writing our book while everything was playing out that you will read in the book. I was literally writing it like a journalist on the front line. Like, I'm in the war zone, like all the conflict, because we had a lot of conflict going on when he came back that we're going to talk about to help you understand what may happen for you. And I was writing it as was happening, and I thought, "Oh my God, how do I," one day I feel like I'm in heaven. I feel all this bliss, and the next day I feel like my world is falling apart again. And it was up and down and up and down. But I just kept writing, and it did help that I actually had to put most of our life savings into investing in self-publishing, and we had to do it right. I knew that. Spirit said, "You can't skimp on the editing. You can't give it over to a publisher, even if you could find one. You don't want to go that route because they're going to want to change your story." And that cover of our book, they said that would have never happened if you had a publisher. That cover Alan created. And it was important that he created it because it's a portal. And that light that you see, that is the portal, and your loved ones will come through that light into the book to you. And so all of that, they said, can't happen, and you need to retain control over all the rights of the book. And when you sign up with a publisher, they take all your rights, and they may even sit on it. And even if somebody wants to offer a movie deal for your book, some publishers will sit on that too. They won't even let that go. They won't let that happen. And I'm not saying our book will become a movie. I actually think if a book did become a movie, I think the more interesting movie would be about this whole story that I'm telling you, not even about how we met and all that, but how this phenomenon of me discovering that there's so many people having relationships through the veil, and what is unfolding every day as people, ordinary people, discover that they can continue their relationships, and that what's important is that they evolve, right? That they spiritually open up and step into becoming their soul. And this was something that I've been passionate about since I opened up 37 years ago. I knew when I first opened up the channel that I was here to help people embody their soul. I knew that before Ellen passed away. I knew that my work wasn't just to help people become psychic. I knew that that wasn't the answer. It wasn't the answer for me. I went through a transformation, and it raised my energy. And that's why Alan, he said to me just the other night, he says, that's why he was always a little bit insecure, because he knew I was more evolved. I didn't act like, oh, I'm more evolved than you, Alan. I mean, I'm not that kind of person. But he said he knew that I was highly evolved, and he knew he hadn't done the work, that he was, yes, very psychic, but he had fears and insecurities. And he knew that I didn't have many. I mean, now I don't. I mean, back then I probably had a little bit more when I met him, a little bit residual, but now, I mean, nothing, because he's really helped me process like everything. So I am fearless, and I know who I am, and I know who I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve you. And at the time when I met him, though, I was confused. So it wasn't until he died that I understood that I'd shut down my heart because he had become selfish and dissociated. And I had assumed it was his trauma from growing up during the war, World War II, in England, in London. And I had compassion for that. So I just thought, okay, well, he's just traumatized. He's just distorted, and I can't make him heal that. I can't change that, and so I just understood and had compassion. And in my mind, that was the reason. That was the reason that he was distant. That was the reason why he stopped being romantic, which he was incredibly when I first met him, incredibly. And he said, and when he came back, he started telling me why he withdrew. And part of it was, you said, it makes no sense, Pam, but I really believed that if I told you how amazing you were, you would realize, yeah, I'm so amazing. Why am I with you? Why am I with you? And I would go find somebody else. He said he lived his whole life with me, worried that I was going to meet somebody else because he felt he inferior. He felt he wasn't good enough. He even said to me, he said, I thought to myself, she could have anyone. Why does she want me? So his lack of self-love, his feeling unworthy, is what the problem was. He said if he hadn't loved me so much, he wouldn't have been so terrified, because he'd been with other women and they were safer. They were safer because he wasn't truly in love. But he said to me that, especially men, and women can be like this too, but he says, especially men, he says, when they finally meet someone that they love, whatever their sexuality, sexual preferences, doesn't matter, right? They really meet someone they love, that their person. He says for some people who are not strong in their self-esteem, yeah, it can be terrifying. It can be terrifying. And it was terrifying for him, because now it's like you're out of control. Like, I'm not in control here. I'm used to being in control. And so he started to kind of hold back because he didn't like that feeling of not being in control. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I thought, all right, he's just blocked. He can't show his love to me. And I felt he was selfish, and he could be sometimes unkind, not really mean. Only one time was he really mean to me, and he's apologized over and over and over. I mean, really mean, hurtful, deliberately, and then crushed me emotionally. And I didn't understand, why. So, but out of self-protection, I didn't realize that I had withdrawn my heart. I had hidden it. And so I wasn't fully alive either. He had repressed his emotions, and I couldn't survive with him if I didn't do the same, if I'd been full out emotional and be my true self, I wouldn't have been able to handle being with him. Not that he was never abusive, but and he was easy to live with actually in many ways. But I wasn't fully happy, and I felt often very alone, even though he was always with me because he never wanted to not be with me. He was like he says he was like my shadow. Like he always wanted to be with me. But you can be with somebody all the time and be very alone. And so when he did cross over and my dear friend Swati said to Alan, "Well, I'm just worried about Pam because now, you're not here in a body and she's all alone." And he goes, "Swati, Pam was more alone when I was here and she's not alone now. So don't worry about her. She's never going to know loneliness. And I'm here with her and she's going to come to fully know that and feel that. And I can love her in the way that I couldn't when I was here." So she kind of eased up on that, because she was really, really sad that I believing that I was going to be so lonely without Alan. And you may feel lonely of, missing your partner too, but I assure you they're here. So it's a question of opening your heart. For me, I had to open my heart again because I didn't know that I was so dead. And maybe you are, because you might have gone through kind of what I went through. And even if you didn't go through 30 years of neglect like I did, you may have had to shut down, when your loved one crossed because it's just too much. And that's okay. It's really okay, whatever you do. But until we open our heart again and be all that we are, feel all the love that we have for ourselves and them, we won't be fully alive. And they, on the other side, are fully alive. So if we want to have a full relationship, and I don't just mean communication, that's only one part of a relationship. Important part, don't get me wrong. But if you want more, and when I say more, I mean feeling like you're steeped in love, like there's this love that's just constantly around you, like you're living in this bubble of love. I know it sounds corny. I understand it sounds really corny. That's how I live. Seriously, it's like it's hard to explain. I feel like this kind of a vibration. It's like this gentle, like a hum or vibration, and this pulsing of love. And it's almost like it's really hard for me to feel negative anymore because this love just comes in, and Alan is woven his energy with mine, and I don't miss him. I really don't miss him. I don't even miss his body because I have something even more amazing. But at the time when I was married to him, this is how it was, guys. You're not going to believe this, but I literally would try to kind of pull to the far side of the bed because I didn't want to be near Alan because I was so resentful of him. And I felt like every time you touch me, all you want is sex. You don't want to give me love. You just want pleasure. Now, of course, I know he did love me, but you know how men are. And I'm not trying to generalize here, but a lot of them are. It's more about sex. Like they don't understand how to really love someone without sex involved. And women want connection. They want to know they're loved, or maybe a little romance would be nice. They want that. And then the sex, right? It's like, don't go right to the sex. Don't go right to, oh, you just turned me on. And he was always going right to that. And so I would just recoil, like, don't do that to me. I just didn't like it. I wanted him to be affectionate without the sex attached to it. And he didn't know how to do that. And he said later to me, he says, "I can't help it because you always excited me." I said, "Well, that would have been fine, but how about you be nice to me, you be loving to me, and you praise me to people instead of praising me behind my back because you don't want me to think I'm special, so that because then I'm gonna leave you. I said, "I felt like you didn't care. You know, you didn't really care about me. You never took care of me when I was sick. You never did anything if I was in need." I mean, no, not get me wrong. He did basic things, but I mean, he really didn't know how to if I was sick, how to take care of me, right? Like other partners might, bring their partner, breakfast in bed or coffee or whatever. Like he didn't know any of that. I'd have to ask him, and that's not the same thing. So so I was very much alone for 30 years. So when he died, I said to him, "Well, I guess this won't be so hard living without you physically because I kind of was alone when I was with you anyway. And now you're more talking to me because when you were here, you hardly talked to me. Like we would go out for a meal or something and not really talk about anything. He was just so shut down. And this is a person who you go to a movie with him, and with most of your friends, I'm sure you go to the movie, and then afterwards you go, "Oh, what did you think of that movie? Did you like that part? Did you like this part?" Right? You talk about the movie. Wouldn't you talk about the movie? Nope, not Alan. Movie's over. Okay, time to go home. Time to go home and do what? Watch another movie on Netflix. So he would just bury himself in movies. Such a typical Leo. Leo is about entertainment, right? It's a house of fun. Leo in astrology is a house of fun. So it's about entertainment. Leo is also about royalty. And Alan had this king complex. He acted like everybody should, serve him, including me. And it wasn't helped by the fact that his chart is Sun and Moon in Leo. But guess what? I also had my Sun and Moon in Leo. So we were so alike in so many ways, and yet we were different. We're very different. He's saying since he came back, he says you were always, he says, more sensitive. You were always more patient. You were always kind. You were always understanding. Um, Tuned in when I wasn't tuned in, when he would stress out and freak out. So he was a psychic, and he's saying he wants me to use him as an example about how somebody can be profoundly psychic, and he was, and yet be distorted, okay? Because the man I just described to you was not well balanced emotionally, okay? And he admits that. He said he had issues that he never confronted. And he says most psychics are just like the average person out there. And the average person and the average psychic, they're not working on their issues. Okay. And he sees that more than ever now. So he says, that's why he says, be cautious when you seek a psychic or a medium. Okay. Because they're not perfect. So don't go giving your power away to them. So when he came back and said, I'm going to give you the love I never gave you. And I said, well, how the hell is that going to work? I mean, isn't it kind of late? Like, what are you talking about? He goes, you'll see. Just, just be open, just go with it. And I agreed. I don't think I ever had a question that I was not going to agree. He wasn't sure I was going to agree because he told Swati, he goes, "Oh my God, I'm so afraid Pam's going to just say, forget it. You're such an asshole." He was just such a shitty husband, which he agrees he was. I was such a shitty husband. And then I was just going to say, who needs you? Because again, remember, even though he's on the other side, and now of course he doesn't have insecurity, he actually in a sense still had a residual insecurity because now he knows, oh my God, I was so crappy to her. Why would she want to continue this relationship? Oh no, I really blew it. So he was worried. He told her, I don't know, she's gonna agree. And I said yes. And then she said, okay, he's so relieved. He said yes. That's why he asked me to marry him again, because he didn't get it right the first time, he said. He said, I should have chosen a ring, taken care to choose it, and spent more money on it. He was too cheap. Not that I cared. I didn't care how much money it was spent. I mean, I would have cared more about the design of it maybe, but it didn't have to be gold. It didn't have to be a diamond. It didn't have to be, but he went with the easy route. He said he was always lazy. So he went the easy route, and there was a jeweler that worked for the who sold jewelry in the store that I worked at, and he did custom pieces. So we went to his place, and Alan chose something for him to make, and I didn't care, so I just went, okay, that's fine. I really didn't like it that much, but all I cared about was getting married. But he said he knew that I wasn't head over heels about it, and he should have insisted on getting something else. But again, he was too lazy. So when he crossed over and he had his life review, and he said, "Oh, I blew everything," is what he said. He said to me, "I literally missed the boat on everything." Everything. Missed the boat on, I should have proposed to you. I should, because he didn't. I should have gotten a ring especially for you, and and on and on. And he and he still to this day gets a little annoyed when I bring up, and I don't do this all the time. I bring up the fact that my first marriage, which I have admitted, even in the book I said that was a mistake. He was a great guy, but that was a mistake. But my first husband, when he proposed, totally romantic, totally like the classic go out to dinner and the ring is in the dessert, classic, right? Like the ring, and he's gonna because he worked in the restaurant industry like I did, and the restaurant that we went to, his friend was a manager, so he got them to deliver this fancy dessert, and of course I dip in there and carefully, and he tells me ring, and he proposed to me in the restaurant. He had the ring chosen specially with a friend of mine, went out of his way to go find the ring, planned our reception because he was a chef. I mean, all this stuff, okay? And I tease Alan and say, my first husband was damn perfect. I mean, because he was. He was good looking, smart, funny, talented, artistic. He could cook better than me. I mean, I told Alan, what did I give that up for you? You couldn't hardly boil water. I mean, you refused to do, shopping or things like that. It's like, why did I marry you? So I tease him when I want to, do that. But of course, the point is, you love who you love, and that's what he finally realized after he crossed over. He said, "You just loved me, and that was it." And why didn't I get it, Pam? He said, "You just loved me because we are meant to be together. We've always been together, and you don't have any choice." I said, "No, I have a choice as what to do about that love, but I don't have a choice in how I feel because I love you." I told him, I wish I had thought of like leaving you, but I knew that wasn't going to make me happy. I knew that my happiness was with you, even if it wasn't full, I wasn't fully happy. But I'd cry about it, and there were many years where I thought something was wrong with me because I wasn't responding to Alan emotionally, and he even said something was wrong with me, like I had some, hang up or something, and I said, "I don't know." I said, I he says, You're not attracted to me." And I said, "But I am, because when you put your hand on me, it's like my body just goes turns into, mush. It's like I respond, but I also was like, get away from me, right? So there's this push pull, and I didn't know what that was until he crossed over and told me that he had shut down emotionally, and he said, "And so did you. You didn't know the extent to which you were angry at me, which I do not blame you, Pam, and how you shut down and how you just closed off your heart, and then that hurt you as much as me." So when he came back, I had to process all that. So if you had any issues with your loved one, you're going to have to process that too. And process simply means feel what you feel. So in the book, I write about how 2 days I was walking around this house right here, like cursing Alan, saying, "You goddamn," on and on and on and on, just telling him what a jerk he was. And he says, kept going, keep saying it, keep saying it. Even Swati, my friend, said, yeah, he says, you need to get it out of your system. So do you if you're holding on to resentment or anger. You just need to get it out. So I did. I screamed and yelled and got most of it out. And I think over the next 6 months or so, I got a little more of it out. You can only release what you're ready to release. But the more I released it, the more I could feel his love. And he said, just feel all your feelings because they're blocking my love. The feelings you've repressed, right? The negative emotion you repressed, it needs to all come out, better out than in. So I would do that, and then I think I was done, and then more would come up, but it was hard for me, even though I knew he was with me. So I wasn't dealing with, is this real? Am I crazy? Is there life after death? I knew there was life after death. That was not in doubt. My doubt was, do you really love me? Are you really gonna deliver on what you're saying? And I was sometimes testing him, and that was unfair, and he wouldn't always come through. So don't you ever think that my journey was like easy, because it wasn't. And there were times when I literally just wanted to kick the book out the window, kick him out the window. Well, he was already out the window, he say, but just like forget it. And even at one point, not that I would ever take my life, but say, I don't want to be here anymore. Like maybe I'll just manifest somehow. And there's many ways you can get out of being here, right? You can manifest illness or disease. And I said, I don't want to be here anymore. This is too hard. This is too painful. I can't take it anymore. Not that I missed him or wanted to be with him. It was just hard. And so I understand what that feels like. But I knew to the core of my being, I said, if you don't see this through, you will never forgive yourself because you're here to serve. Because this is the reason you opened up 37 years ago as a channel, and you've been seeking your purpose from that point on and never found it until your husband died. And it was only then that I realized how much I loved Alan, because now I was open, and my love for him just flowed. Okay, it just poured through me, and then I to him, and then his love came back, and I could really feel it. And that's how I feel now. I feel this exchange of love that just sustains me and lifts me and comforts me and guides me and heals me. But it wasn't a easy path, and it wasn't straight line. It was like this. It was really all over the place, and the people closest to me understand that, were there for me. But it, like I said, it's not easy. So read our book if you're struggling. And I've had so many people say that they can identify with us even though they were different. Some of you have even said, no, my husband was just like your husband. um and even if they were different, a lot of people tell me I can identify with you. And you know why that is, folks? You know why that is? You know why we relate to people's love stories, whatever they are? It's because we're all one when it comes right down to it. And so anybody's love story, whatever their background, whatever their nationality, it strikes to the core of who we are, to the love that we are. So we see ourselves mirrored in each other. We do. And that's why sharing stories is so powerful. And that's why Ellen said we needed to share our story so that people understood that they're not alone and that their loved one has made mistakes probably, but they want to make it up to us. And they may need to learn how to reach through the veil, and we may need to learn how to heal ourselves and, change our limiting beliefs and all that, but we can do it. I promise you can do it, because if you weren't able to do it, you wouldn't be watching me right now. You would have changed, to another video long ago, and you would have just rolled your eyes. But if you're listening to me and it resonates with you, then that means that is part of your journey. But you're going to have to work through, again, any issues that you haven't resolved with your partner. You're going to have to dig deep and clear all that. If you have to love yourself, because they love themselves now, at least more fully than when they were here. So we have to vibrationally match them better. Not perfectly. It's not about that. It's just getting close. Like just close enough so that you can interact. So there's so many people having these relationships through the veil. Ours wasn't by any means the most dramatic one. It's just our story is our story. We happen to be two psychics who met each other. I saw the potential in our relationship. I thought we were going to teach back then. By the time Alan was not so much Alan, but me. I was, because we had a child, if you remember. And by the time Taylor, our son, was old enough to be left with his grandparents for me to travel with Alan, he didn't want to travel anymore. So I was really disappointed because I was somewhat jealous of the fact that he continued to travel with his friend Barbara. I wasn't jealous of her relationship because I knew he saw her as a sister or even a mother, but not, there was nothing romantic between them. But I was just envious of the fact that she got to work with him. And I always wanted to do that. That had been my dream. So when he died, he said, well, this is what we plan to work on. Because now, he says, only now that I'm dead am I your equal. When I was in a body, I wasn't your equal. And I realized, yeah, you were rather insecure when I did teach a little bit with him. He let me do all the talking. And he would just chime in with a story or something. He liked to tell stories. Wasn't confident teaching solo. But all that changed when he crossed over. Immediately changed. I mean, literally within 7 days, it's like, okay, let's work together. And I was grieving. I was still grieving 7 days in. And I hit the ground running, sharing our story, teaching, helping people. He said, I want to do readings with you for people. And everything keeps up leveling and into like healing people, doing our Bridge to Heaven sessions, helping people connect with their loved ones through the veil. I didn't need to have a Bridge to Heaven session. I was already having that contact, but I knew that when we would do that for other people, we were holding the space for them to make contact, and that Alan from that point on would be available to help them refine it. So that made sense. But he gave me that idea. It was one thing after another thing, and we still are discovering other things to do. And I just want to like end by telling you that there's no limit to how strong this connection through the veil can be. And please, please, never, ever for once think that different means inferior, that having a different relationship with them through the veil means it's less than or inferior. It is not. That is your physical mind that only appreciates things that are physical. And you've got to kind of turn a deaf ear to that part of you. Your higher self, the soul that you are, knows that their spirit is the only thing that matters. And their spirit can love you in a way that I promise you, when they're in a body, I don't care who the person is, they cannot love the way they can love from the other side. There's no way, and Alan's told me that. There's no way, because as long as you have a negative ego, and even an ounce of fear, which most people have, like 98% of the people, you cannot love truly unconditionally. Unconditional love is extremely, extremely rare on the earth plane. It just is. Alan didn't love me unconditionally as much as he loved me. And I'm sure that most of your loved ones couldn't love you unconditionally either. I don't mean they didn't love you. I'm saying unconditional means no matter what you did, even if you met somebody else or whatever you did, right? That they would love you completely. Their love for you would never wane, would never falter. It would just hold steady and support you in whatever you wanted, even if what you wanted would somehow maybe take you away from them. They would want that anyway. Come on, most people can't do that. But from the other side, they can do that. So the love that they have for us that's unconditional has the power to ignite our unconditional love for ourselves and others. And that leads to nothing less than our spiritual transformation. They're showing me that think of their love like this spark, right? That spark, that light just ignites the light within you. And that light, that love is pure. It's not tainted by negative ego or fear or the limit, the physical mind and its limiting beliefs. It's just completely fearless and knows that you're going to be together because guess what? You're actually already together on the other side because you're a spirit on the other side. You've only expressed a portion of yourself into this body. So that love that they have to bring to us, even if you're experiencing now, because some of you are, because some of you are in our academy or our clients, even if you're experiencing it now, there's no limit to how strong that love can become because there's no limit to how much we can grow. And the thing that's maybe limiting you right now is your beliefs. So if you believe you're unworthy of love, you're kind of filtering their love through that, so it won't feel as strong. It won't feel as pure. You'll still feel it because it's powerful, but it gets stronger as you get clearer. And it is, I don't know how to explain it. It's beyond description what's possible for you to feel. Alan did tell me, he said, we are the lucky ones, Pam, because very few people can love unconditionally like you and I can. Yes, I'm not in a body, I'm on the other side, but now you're finally loved. Because one of the things that I thought about a lot when Alan was really sick with his dementia, and I knew his time was almost up, I would lie awake at night and just kind of cry, thinking, I'm going to die never knowing what it's like to be loved. Because I couldn't remember how Alan loved me in the beginning. I lost touch of that, because 30 years of distancing from me and neglect just that's all I remembered. But he heard that, he said. He heard that and he said, I'm going to show her what it is to be loved. And oh my God, has he ever? Oh my God, is he always present and making me laugh and helping me. So I want to share a last story closing of how he helped me recently. And this is really a silly thing. So I recently bought one of those mattress toppers, kind of memory foam, right? Like that kind of thing for bed. Because our bed, for some reason, I felt like it was too hard. I had it for a while, but it felt like it was too hard. So Alan says, well, buy one of those things. And I said, okay. So I buy this thing, right? And it's big because we have a queen size bed. So I had to leave it in my office so that it would like inflate or whatever, not inflate, but it has to like come back to its form. You have to leave it in place for almost 72 hours. So I did that. And then I have to move it. And it says on the box, like it needs 2 people. So I go, well, are you going to help me? And he says, of course I'm going to help you. Oh, how are you going to do that? Come on, how are you going to do that? He goes, I'll show you. Go pick it up. So I pick it up, I kind of fold it or whatever. I can't remember what I kind of fold it. And I said, but I have to hold this up. I don't want to drag it on the floor. He goes, don't worry, I got it. I swear to you, I felt like some force just kind of lifted up the other end of this big mattress topper, and I carried it from my office to my bedroom. And I said, oh my God, this is hard to get on that bed. He goes, no, it's not. Just put it here. And I felt him just move the topper to the bed on one side. And I go, oh, that's not so hard. He goes, see, I told you. Now, okay, now set it up, right? So that's what he does. And I've felt him do things like that many times. Like when I one time was walking along a rocky pathway and I could feel I was about to like fall over. I felt him get me right. I felt him pull me upright. And I just, without even thinking, said, oh, thank you, honey. Because I know he's there with me. And I know he's watching over me. And I know that, as he said to me, he says, nothing is going to harm you, ever. He says, you know that. You're guided by spirit. I'm here watching over you. You have an army of angels around you because of the work we do together. You and I are always together. Even when people call me, you come with me because I can't do this work without you, because your energy grounds me into the physical world. And this is why I can help people who are in physical. Sure, he can help everybody on the other side, but here in physical world, he says spirit needs a person in a body to ground their energy. They can't just walk around like doing things. I mean, they can a little bit, but it's more what they're doing is more like putting ideas in people's head or doing some little things. They can. But the things that he wanted to do, he said, I needed to be here in the body. I need to stay behind. And he says, and anyway, Pan, he says, you were born to teach and you were born to heal. And you always knew that. And I was always telling you that, even though I was telling him, well, so were you. And he goes, no, I wasn't. I wasn't going to do that until I died physically. And now I can. So he teaches through me, speaks through me, he heals through me. We are so merged. We are almost like one. And yet you can't really be, not really, because you're separate souls. So you cannot really merge, but you can feel as if you're really merged. Impossible to be one completely because you're separate souls. And yet all of us are one. All of us, you, me, everyone, we're all one on that level. But there are relationships, twin soul relationships, in which the couple, it's such an intense mirroring that it just seems like you're one, but in truth you can't be. In truth, you're not one soul split apart. That is impossible. You are your own soul, but the intensity of relationship is what a twin soul, twin flame relationship is describing. The intensity of the mirroring, and therefore the triggering of issues, and also the complementary energies that they bring together. They work as one. I had an astrologer who met us in the early days when we just got together. She looked at our chart and she met with us and she said, you know what? It's almost like you guys are one person. She saw that in our chart because we, again, sun in Leo, moon in Leo, other things in our chart, kind of similar. And I see that, so he was definitely the person I was meant to be with. Didn't mean it's easy. Okay. It's easy now, right? And your relationship might be challenging as you're starting to lean into it. You can get there. It can work out. Just remember, different doesn't mean inferior. Different just means different. So just heal your resentments. Trust and believe in what you're experiencing. Be present in the now, because this is where they are. If you turn your focus to the past, they're not there. So you will feel the absence of them, and that will hurt. That will hurt because you're looking for them. But if you're where they're in the now and you're building new memories, you'll have a sense of connection, and then it's easier to remember the past without thinking like you miss them because you have them. But in the beginning, you're not sure. So your belief is creating the illusion that you're not with them. So until you really, really know you're connected with them in the now, I would suggest not going down memory lane too much because it can feel painful because they're right here. You've moved away from them. And if you think too much in the future, you kind of move away from them too. So Alan and other loved ones in spirit are constantly saying, I'm right here, or stay here, stay in the now. Alan was always saying to me, stay here, I'm here. I'm right here, I'm right here. And I keep saying, yeah, okay, like, okay, you keep saying I'm here. I go, because I'm right here. And so is your loved one. So is your loved one. They're right here because there's nowhere else to be. Everything is here and now. Everything exists in this moment now. They cannot be anywhere else but here. So don't go looking for them where they aren't. Okay. If you want connection, stay here. Believe, trust, feel their love, process your feelings. Right. Don't be afraid to cry. I promise you, you cannot cry forever. It's impossible for anybody to feel anything forever. You just can't. Okay. At some point, you'll pause. And when you pause, you'll suddenly feel this love. My last like homework assignment to you would be to watch our last video, which I will link later when this video gets posted by YouTube. The one about, grief is really love that has been hijacked by limiting beliefs. The reason you grieve so strongly is actually in direct proportion to how much love they are sending you. That you, through your belief that they're dead, because that's what people usually believe in the beginning, your belief that they're dead turns that love into grief. Ellen, prove that to me. Watch that video, you'll understand what I mean. And you can start to turn your grief into love. Okay, it doesn't mean you don't feel your feelings. I'm just saying, I want you to understand what grief really is. It's not what we've been told. It's not what we have believed it is. It's not. It's love that we're misinterpreting because of our beliefs. And then because we believe they're dead, we turn the love into grief, into sorrow. But that explains why most people feel this intense grief. Is actually intense love that they're broadcasting to you because they love you so much and they will always love you. And they're beaming it your way when they leave. And that's why people just cannot handle it. But Alan says they know that we're interpreting it as grief, but they're not going to stop loving us because they are love. So they can't not love us. They can't not be around us without beaming that love. So it's up to us to realize, oh, wait, I'm feeling this grief. It's because of my belief. Let me adjust my belief. If you do that, you'll start feeling more of the love. So don't take my word for it. Just experiment with this. Just practice this. Just be open to it. Because what do you have to lose except your grief? Just practice it. All right. All right. So that's it. 3:03 is my time. Our book is on special on ebook version is downloadable till Friday. This is September 18th, and we're giving away. The book is free because we can do it every 3 months or so through Amazon. So if you're watching it within the next so many days, grab a copy. It is easy to find on Amazon. Your country, you might have to go to your country's Amazon site to find it if you're not in the U.S. And if you have a Kindle, you can read it on that, obviously. But if you don't have a Kindle, then you can get the Kindle app for your phone or device and read it that way. To download the book, you're going to have to either go to the Amazon website and input our book title and my name, right there, Pam Johnson, Supernatural Love, and you can get it that way, or on your phone. You can do it on a browser on your phone, not the Amazon app. Amazon app doesn't let you download ebooks. You have to actually use the browser app. Okay, it's pretty simple. But now we're going to hang around a little bit longer because we are going to give away 2 books. Okay, to people in the live chat. So I'm looking if anybody shared their story. We're going to give away some signed books. And we're just hanging on a little longer here. I'll answer a question while we're waiting. CE says, is it their vibration gets higher and it's harder to hear? I mean, basically, harder for you to hear? Harder for you to hear? I hear yes and no. I get yes and no. Yeah, the residual earth energy, when they cross over, makes it easier. No, it makes it not easier for you to hear. It makes it easier for them to project strongly, so then you hear them. Because now they have less energy, so it's almost like, yeah, they can become softer not really, but their voice becomes softer because they have less energy to project. Whereas when they first crossed over, they can like even be physical. Okay, but they don't, that will never last. Never. It will recede, and then the strength of their connection will weaken because they're more fully transitioning to fifth density, fifth dimension. They're no longer kind of at the border, let's say, or still a little bit here, or quasi, physical. They're not really physical, but quasi for a while. Some of them can do that. So that's why you need to raise your vibration. And psychic development classes are not the answer. They are not. I've met countless people who say, yeah, I took mediumship and that didn't really help me. No, because you're already psychic. You don't need, I know it sounds funny, like you don't need to be psychic to connect with your loved one. You need to raise your vibration. And psychic development classes, I know because I taught them, they don't generally help you raise your vibration. They're not focused on that at all. They're not teaching you how to clear your limiting beliefs. Okay, if you find a teacher who's doing that, helping you clear your limiting beliefs, clear your fears, teach you how existence works so that you are able to understand what's in your unconscious and all that. This is more personal development, spiritual development, not psychic development. Psychic development is not the answer if you want to continue your relationship, because you have to raise your frequency. And that's why some people who are not even trying to be psychic, like me, when I opened up as a channel, what was I doing? I'm connecting to my guides. They're in the fifth dimension. So this is what happens. I'm connecting with the fifth dimension, blending with them, channeling them, speaking for them, puts me in a gamma brainwave state, which is a high functioning state, and it's a meditative state. And that changes me because I'm actually bringing in fifth density energy into my consciousness, and I have an awakening. So if you start channeling your loved one, and we teach that in the academy, and we will teach again a basic class on that, you can start to bring in that fifth density energy, and that's just going to start to awaken you. You go further with that than any conventional mediumship training, I promise you. Well, at least the way we teach it, because Alan's helping your loved one. I can't say the same for everybody's classes, but I know Alan would actively help your loved one to connect and make it easier for you to connect with them, right? So you can channel. That is not hard. It is very easy to channel. It very much is. Again, he's saying, again, the way we teach with Alan on the other side, mediumship is a different thing. You don't have to do mediumship or learn mediumship to have a relationship through the veil. That is a misconception. So I hope that makes sense. So let me look in the comments. We're looking for somebody to give some books to. So somebody share your story. We're going to stay on here for a while until we find a winner. We're giving away a book, at least one book, maybe two books, to somebody if they share their story. And you might want to do it in the in a chat. I mean, right now. Lisa is sharing our group link. Yeah, just go to Facebook and look for Life and Love After Death. That should be the only group that you'll find if you input that. Melissa says, yep, my hubby keeps saying, I'm not there, I'm right here. All right, nobody wants a book? Hey, you guys, the rules were you have to share your story. We kind of have to get going here. Okay, Alan says he's just going to randomly select somebody. All right, he told me one person. Okay, so here are the winners of the book, and I hope you're still here and you're paying attention when I call your name, because I need you to acknowledge you heard me. Okay, Karen Vinson. Now, you might have already bought her book, and Ellen goes, "That's okay, you can give it away to somebody." But we want to send you a signed copy of our book. Karen? Karen Vincent, are you paying attention to me? Okay. Well, we will find you in our group. Leanne says she accidentally bought 2 copies, so she's good. That's some, yeah, CE, you're the other one. We're choosing you. All right, so our winners are now CE. I don't think you're in our group, are you? Okay, so you're going to have to email me at Pam. I'll put it up on on here. Hold on a minute. Do I have it? I don't think I have it. Isn't that terrible? Okay. Or you can also just look at our description here on YouTube and okay. I think this is right. Let me see. Did I spell that right? All right. So Karen Vincent, NCE, you need to email me at supernaturallove.com, Pam at supernaturallove.com, so that I can get your mailing address and how you want me to sign your book. Yes, it's autographed copy of your book. So you need to do that because I don't necessarily know how to reach you. So you will reach me. Okay. Yeah. Yes, you can email me. Yeah. So email me, Karen and CE. And Alan saying, CE, if you're not in our group, why aren't you? Get in there. He says that's an order. He's saying, we're bribing you to get into our group, giving you a book. Okay. Yeah, join our group. It's an amazing group, but and it's getting more amazing every day. And watch our videos here on the channel, especially the one we did last week about grief being love inverted by our limiting beliefs. Okay, what I'm sharing with you is what source I'm channeling. Source. I've done that for 37 years, so we will see you next time. Okay. And until then, keep believing. Okay. What is that song? Don't Stop Believing. That's Journey, right? Yeah. You guys should play that song over and over. Don't stop believing. Your beliefs create. So keep believing and you'll get there. Bye bye.